This is Geek Gab with your hosts, John, Brian, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab episode 100. Saturday, May 27th, 2017. 100 of awesome, excellent, and amazing episodes have gone out over our channel. So I just want to give a big thanks to my two co-hosts, Brian and John, for joining me on this madhouse of a podcast. How's your week, guys?
It has been fantastic. I'm really happy that we made it 200 episodes. This is great.
Yeah, seconded. It's kind of a shock. I mean, time flies.
I don't think you had published your first book yet when you joined the show.
No, still working on Ethereal.
We had you on initially to talk about you just had a story published in Sci-Fi Journal, I think.
Yeah. I did. That was back in 2015.
Holy cow, 2015. I didn't realize it's been 2 years.
Yeah, how did we keep this up that long? I mean, it's having fun, obviously.
Yeah, we actually started the show in 2014.
Wow.
We just took some months off over one summer because we were having persistent technical problems, which is a shock. I know all the people listening in, they hear about this show having technical problems and they are floored, they are flabbergasted. They simply cannot believe that such a thing is even possible. But let me reassure you, not only is it possible, it actually happened. So we had to shut down production for, I think, 4 months while we tried to get stuff worked out. And then eventually I had to rip out all the software I had to uninstall Chrome and a bunch of other stuff and reinstall it. And that's the only thing that could get it working. So.
Persistent technical problems. Is there any other kind?
I've got a new problem, Daddy Warpig. I don't know what's going on with your mic setup lately, but you've got a little bit of an echo. Which is fine, because when you said 100 episode, it had that echo, and I just felt it, the impact.
I don't know. I have no idea.
We'll run with it. And
as a sound effect, he's running it through a delay pedal. That's on purpose.
And the show's been so much fun that we had so much stuff to talk about that we split off 2 other shows just to talk about specific topics.
We did. Yeah, we've got Geek Gab on the books with me talking about writing stuff, and then we got Geek Gab game night. I'll tell the new people a little bit about that. That's exciting.
Nope.
Just nope.
Well, we do that too.
All right, let's I went out this morning, and even though it was our 100th episode, I decided that I ought to do something. So I went out and I watched the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. So in the interests of having an actual episode before we get into all the reminiscing, or I guess now after we get into all the reminiscing, I saw the movie and I have several opinions about it. I want to begin by saying this. They actually did a really good job with the trailers, because normally trailers will spoil a ton of things that are in the movie, including critical plot points that occur later in the movie. But all of the stuff that they put in the trailers, for the most part, was in the first few minutes of the movie. And so the last, 70% of the movie was almost entirely new stuff that you hadn't seen before, which means they didn't spoil any of it for you. You didn't know for sure what plot twists were coming. You didn't know how things were going to go. And it was nice to go to a movie that didn't ruin itself in the trailers. So here's the problem. Everybody, or almost everybody, loved the first Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, because it was fun, it was cool, it was imaginative, and it was very, very different. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking on the show about how it was, I had mentioned about how it was actually a backup script that got repurposed as Pirates of the Caribbean. I have since found out that it was actually a backup script for a Tales of Monkey Island movie. Now, Tales of Monkey Island is an adventure, game done by LucasArts at their height of their adventure game craze before they just went all Star Wars. And it's about a tall, gangly, clumsy guy by the name of Guybrush Threepwood who wants to become a pirate and ends up tangling with a undead pirate. So Orlando Bloom's character, William Turner, was originally supposed to be Guybrush Threepwood from the video game, and Barbossa, who the captain of the Black Pearl, is supposed to be the undead pirate from Tales from Monkey Island. So they took a script made for a movie about a video game, completely remade it into a movie about a theme park ride. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. No one would predict that to be a path that would lead to cinematic excellence, and yet the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie was great, primarily because of Captain Jack Sparrow. The character of Captain Jack Sparrow was so interesting, so colorful, and I don't actually know if that character had any parallel in Tales from Monkey Island, but in the Curse of the Black Pearl, which is 14 years ago, folks, 2003, he was great. He just did an awesome job. Johnny Depp playing that character did an incredible job. The rest of the cast was good too. The backup players they had, the backup characters they had, they all added interesting stuff. The movie was well thought out. It had a strong internal consistency, and it was just a lot of fun. People loved Captain Jack Sparrow so much as a character that they kept on making Pirates of the Caribbean movies long after the magic had mostly faded. So I watched this movie, and unfortunately, there were a few major mistakes and annoyances right at the beginning that kind of put me in a bad mood for watching the movie, and that lasted for a good long time. I'm going to talk about a couple of the of the mistakes they made right at the beginning. The Flying Dutchman shows up. And if you don't remember the Flying Dutchman, it's that sunken ship where the crew is slowly having pieces of their body being replaced by sea creatures. So they're no longer human. They now have fish heads and shark heads and crab claws for hand, so on and so forth. But I never liked that ship. I never liked the concept of it. I never liked the appearance of it. I thought it was dumb then, and it's dumb now. And it just shows up out of the blue to set up kind of an overarching plot to give the main character, who is William Turner's son, it shows up to give William Turner's son his impetus through the movie, to establish why he's doing what he's doing. And so in terms of writing a script, in terms of plotting a story, it's not necessarily a bad choice, but it's still, I didn't like it at all when it showed up in Pirates of the Caribbean 2. It just seemed too much, and the idea was kind of dumb. So that put me off in a bad mood right from the beginning. And then this character, Henry Turner, played by an actor who's completely unknown to me, Brenton Thwaites. I have no idea. Have either of you guys heard of anything else he's been in?
No.
Never heard of him before.
Okay, apparently he was in Gods of Egypt, Oculus. I've actually seen Oculus and Maleficent, but I don't remember him from either of those. So he's not a really memorable actor, at least as far as the movies I've seen him in. He was in Gods of Egypt, which I haven't seen, and several other movies, but I don't remember him at all. In any case, Brenton Thwaites plays William Turner, who is, again, Will Turner's son. And he is aboard. This is the second thing that really irritated me. They've got a Royal Navy vessel, and he breaks out of his position and runs all the way through the ship and starts shouting some crazy stuff at the captain. Now, it kind of irritated me because the Royal Navy doesn't play games like that. If you stepped out of line that much, they would just execute you on the ship after a drumhead court-martial. They were very, very harsh. They had very harsh discipline because they had to. Have you ever seen Master and Commander on the High Seas, which is an excellent movie about the Royal British Navy?
Yes.
You'll know what I mean. I mean, they had to execute people in order to keep discipline. If you didn't keep discipline aboard the ship, people died. If people didn't carry out their jobs exactly as they were supposed to, when they were supposed to, people died. And you can say, well, that's a small thing. It's Pirates of the Caribbean. They've never been all that, all that interested in those details. It still was just really, really sloppy. It was really, really badly done. And they didn't even pretend like this was literally a lethal thing he was doing, that he was literally going to get the death penalty by the captain almost immediately for stepping on a line like this. There's no weight to it. If there had been a weight that, oh, this is a serious thing you're doing right now, it might have been more interesting. And they're trying to make it thrilling. It wasn't comic. They were trying to make it thrilling and dangerous and, oh no, something bad's happened. And they squandered it through not just bad screenwriting, but a complete refusal to bring into the script some of the realities that would have made the rest of the fantasy seem more grounded. Again, the myths that go into the Pirates of the Caribbean movies they're just made up whole cloth. By and large, they have no connection to actual pirates or actual pirate myths or actual superstitions. And I can't help but thinking the movies would be better if they did draw on those kinds of superstitions of the Caribbean or whatever. Because as it is, they just feel like a fantasy movie where there's no solid earth underneath your feet. There's nothing grounded. You have no idea what's going to happen or what's not going to happen or what should happen or shouldn't happen. So everything that happens just entire movie feels like they're just pulling it out of their bottom. They explain, and again, these are all things right at the beginning. These are the things I'm thinking, literally writing down in my notepad right at the beginning. They give an explanation as to why the movie is called Dead Men Tell No Tales. But it's stupid. It's a stupid explanation. It's a groan-worthy explanation. And it's clear that the only reason why they threw this one line of dialogue in there was just so the movie's subtitle would make sense, because the movie subtitle makes no sense. It's an allusion to, pirate stuff, pirate culture, but it made no sense as the subtitle to this movie. So it was a dumb explanation. The next thing they introduced was eye-rolling idiocy. It was a series of things that have become cliches. The main character, Henry Turner, has a love interest whose name is Karina Smith. And she's played by an actress that I've seen before in other things, but she was in the Maze Runner movies. If you have seen the Maze Runner movies, they have one girl who gets thrown into this big, huge camp with all the boys. That was her. That actress plays a character named Karina Smith in this movie. And they introduce her by her being accused of being a witch and then told that she's going to be hanged tomorrow. And she says, "I'm not a witch. I'm a woman of science."
What?
Again,
did everybody in the theater just groan when that happened?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to get it written down so I would remember it for the show. I'm like, that's it. That's going in my notes. I have to mention that. Look, I understand these are fantasy movies and that they have very little connection or almost no connection with what the real world of piracy or the real world of this time period was like. And yet at the same time, the last thing you need to do is to drag in lines that could have been written by Neil deGrasse Tyson or that kind of freaky looking guy who used to be doing a science show but is now doing bad stuff on Netflix. Bill Nye. Yeah, or Bill Nye. So,
see, I was always a Beakman's World kind of kid, or maybe Mr. Wizard.
Yeah.
It's painful because it's so stupid. Nobody of that time would speak like that. No character should speak of themselves like that. It's just there because the screenwriter is under an obligation to make sure that this is a strong female character. And the only way he knows to make her a strong female character is to make someone who is utterly incapable of admitting they're wrong or apologizing when they've made egregious mistakes, or having her make something like this that a modern day audience of people who care more about ideology than they do about a good story will just go, "Oh, she's really a woman of science. That's so awesome. That's so beautiful. Science was so persecuted." And they call it her a witch, and witches were so persecuted. That's so awful. I'm so hurt. You go, girl. And that's what it's pandering to. That's all it is. It's pandering. It was a leaden line tossed in just to pander to a certain part of the audience. It was eye-rolling idiocy. It's followed by a chase scene that goes on forever, where they rob a bank, where these pirates rob a bank. Now, I want to be very specific in my language here. They don't actually rob the bank. They steal the bank.
Just right off the foundations?
Yes. They hook ropes up to a big team of horses, a lot of horses, like 10 horses, I think, and pull the entire bank with them. Now, they didn't mean to be pulling the entire bank with them. They meant just to be grabbing the safe, but they end up stealing the bank.
See, you've just told me that you saw a movie where pirates rob a bank, and yet somehow I'm completely uninterested. I don't know how they managed to do that.
Yeah. The scene goes on way, way too long. It's way boring because it's completely divorced from reality. I mean, at some point they're like, go to port, and they turn this team of horses, and somehow they cut away from this because they must have realized they can't actually show this on screen. Somehow they managed to corner with the bank.
Wow.
I don't know how they did it. Nobody knows how they did because they didn't show it. They are trying to make it seem exciting, but it just goes on too damn long.
Yeah, the pitch, pirates rob a bank, should be the definition of fun, right?
Yeah.
And pirates steal stuff. You know what I was thinking about a pirate movie that delves into actual Caribbean lore? They should do one of these that's just all about bacon. Now hear me out. You've heard the term buccaneer.
Yes.
It's a synonym for pirate, right?
Yes.
That basically means someone who makes bacon. Because they would. They would stop at these little islands and stock them up with livestock and let them graze, and then come back a while later and slaughter a pig that they had there or something, and then smoke the meat on the shore on racks. So ships would come by to resupply, like take on water and bacon, and sometimes the buccaneers would just sell them supplies, and sometimes they were feeling feisty. If they thought they could get away with it, they would board and rob the ships. But you could work bacon into a pirate movie and have it be historically accurate.
So she says to another character, "What? She says to another character, what? You've read the arcane texts? Or it might be ancient texts. I can't read my own handwriting here. You've read the ancient texts, as in the ancient books?" And I'm wincing in pain because these people are too lazy to even come up with fake names for books that would somehow make the world seem more real or more grounded. They just have to say the arcane texts. You couldn't even borrow the names of books from Lovecraft or whomever else?
Yeah, they're public domain.
I mean, in fact, I was just reading one of Larry Correia's books, and he has in that book itself a fake, completely made up arcane text that he bothers to give a name for, so that people who read it will actually have a little bit of flavor, something interesting, something that can give you a feel for what the universe is. And they couldn't even do that. They couldn't even take 5 seconds. They couldn't even take 5 seconds to pick up, to fake some kind of name, to make it seem exotic, to make it seem interesting, to make it, feel like about ancient history texts or ancient, mystical tomes or whatever. The people who scripted the movie, in the beginning at least, didn't do anything to make the movie any better than they absolutely had to. They didn't put in the work to make the movie any better than they absolutely had to. Okay, here's the name of the book from Larry Correia's novel, Skia Thanatou, which means shadow of death.
Ooh.
Now, just think about how much flavor, about how much feel that book adds. It's a great title. When you know just the fake title, Skia Thanatou, it feels, mysterious, ominous. And yet, they couldn't even do that. They couldn't even try to do that. And of course, they steal a line from, they steal a concept from J.R.R. Tolkien, which is, oh, you have a map that cannot be read by no man. And she says, well, it's a good thing I'm no man.
So it's a combination of the moon runes and Eowyn. Oh, wow.
And Paul McCartney shows up in a completely pointless and kind of stupid cameo. He's just there for a little bit. I mean, at least when they had Keith Richards in the movie as Jack Sparrow's father, he was a great character. On the screen, he had great presence. He looked like someone tough, rough, who could be a pirate. I'm sorry. Paul McCartney does have now and has always had a baby face. He doesn't look like a pirate. He looks like a cook wearing pirate's clothes. All right? He looks like a chubby cook wearing pirate's clothes. So
I guess it was too much to ask that they'd cast him as like a British captain or shipman on one of the English vessels,
or quartermaster, or a merchant, a rich shopkeeper, anybody that other than trying to make him Jack Sparrow's uncle. That's who he shows up as, Jack Sparrow's uncle. All right. This is when I stopped keeping notes, because those are all the things I wanted to.
Because your brain malfunctioned after that point of the movie.
They really front-loaded a lot of bad stuff that made me really dislike the movie. And after this certain point, it stopped being as bad. It got better. After about a third of the way in, it got better. The action was a little bit more interesting. It didn't go on forever. Despite it having ghosts in it, it was less unrealistic than the bank thing. And there was actually some interesting stuff going on. I would say this movie is the second best of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's not superb. It's not a movie that you would run out and tell the people that they had to go see, which the first Pirates of the Caribbean was, but it's not a terrible movie. And I've seen far, far worse movies. Of course, it's got an immense budget, and the special effects are pretty much impeccable. And, it's just they front-loaded so much annoying, tin-eared, poorly thought-out stuff that it made... It put me in a bad mood for the rest of the movie, and it took the movie a while to put in enough okay stuff for me to get out of that bad mood. I will say this. At the end of the movie, there is kind of a point to it, which is, I always felt like Will Turner and Keira Knightley, I can't remember her character's name right now.
Elizabeth Swann.
Elizabeth Swann, thank you. I always felt that Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann had kind of a crappy ending at the end of number 3, where he was doomed to only step on land once every 10 years. And I thought that was kind of that they got jobbed by the script, that they got kind of screwed over by the script of the third movie. And I thought that was a bad ending for those two characters. And this movie exists, or I can accept its existence, predicated on the fact that they changed the situation enough to give them a better ending as a couple, so it kind of draws, at least at the end of the movie, it draws their story to a close in a far more satisfying way. So I can excuse them to... I can excuse the existence of the movie based on that, as it allows them to have... it allows them to have a good ending to their story, or at least a better ending than what they got. So, the second 2/3 of the movie get better. They've got some good action scenes. They've got some interesting stuff that happens. And so, if the things I've talked about don't annoy you enough to make you just hate the movie and never want to see it, or if you can sit through the first third in the interest of getting to the last 2/3, or if they don't annoy you at all, then you can probably watch this movie and have a good time if you like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. It's certainly better than 2 and 3, and it's a little bit better than 4. So, not a great movie, but not the worst thing I've ever seen. And the nice thing is that all of the stupid things right from the beginning, like her saying, "I'm a woman of science," yada, 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 they don't really carry that through. You can imagine that being a constant theme in the rest of the movie, where she's continually banging on about this, and they're continually trying to make her look better than everybody else and make all the other characters look incompetent so that she looks better. Because that's happened in movies. That's happened in The Force Awakens as an example. But they didn't do that. She is actually wrong, and she does actually have to face up to the fact that her scientific beliefs are not correct because she runs into a literal crew of ghosts. And she's not the always right, all powerful, solve everything character that I just got the sinking pit in the bottom of my stomach for when she started that folderol about witches and so on and so forth. So they did not go full Mary Sue with the character. In fact, she just has some unpleasant character traits which translate into strong female character for Hollywood, but would just make her kind of headstrong and obnoxious and self-important as far as the audience is concerned. Any questions?
Yeah, how did you make it through the 4th movie to even get here?
I like the 4th movie better than the 2nd and 3rd movies. Because it didn't have the Flying Dutchman to start with, which I just thought was idiotic. I hated that ship. I hated the concept of that ship. I loved Ian McShane, and I thought Ian McShane needs to have bigger parts and better parts. And I thought that they shortchanged Blackbeard, that the movie would have been much, much better if they had let Blackbeard run wild in it and made him the primary antagonist and let him actually do stuff. He would have run wild all over that movie and would have been really, really awesome. If they let him be as powerful as he could be as a character and let Ian McShane be powerful as he could be as an actor, he would have been daunting. He would have been someone daunting for Jack Sparrow to face, because he would be this kind of elemental force of nature, this terrifying pirate, super pirate, almost a god of the sea. And Jack Sparrow would have just been dodging left and right to avoid being crushed by it. And they did not give him that chance. And so that's where I felt like the 4th movie, where its weaknesses were, is that they focused too much on Jack Sparrow's romance and not enough on Blackbeard.
Did you say wait for Netflix on this one?
It depends. If you like Pirates of the Caribbean movie, go see it in the theaters. It's not a waste of time. But if the things I've talked about really annoy you, then yeah, go wait for Netflix, because they're not going to be less annoying in the theater, I'm guessing, than they were in my review. So, I don't know. I enjoyed the movie. But the movie had to overcome a bunch of its own flaws in order to get to a point where I enjoyed it. And I've still enjoyed other pirate movies much, much more. So that's my, that's all the thoughts I have about Dead Men Tell No Tales.
This is a nice rarity, a movie that's, instead of being great, see it, or terrible, it's kind of
Yeah. I can't give it a great recommendation. I don't know. See, this was our 100th episode. And my difficulty was I kept on trying to think of something great and really legendary we could do for our 100th episode, and none of us came up with anything practical. Dornall had an idea.
I had a couple of hilariously bad ideas. Let's see. The rejected ideas include playing a game on stream, which is actually something people have requested a couple of times, but not for an audio stream. Maybe we'd have to do a separate special show for that, because that would involve actual video.
Like, are they talking like a tabletop game or?
I think a lot of people have asked to do a tabletop game, like an RPG session or a board game. I would love to do a video game as well. An online game would be perfect. Just hang out and play Diablo or Overwatch or whatever. That one sounds like a lot of fun. The other hilarious rejected idea was putting together a script and doing a radio play with the three of us playing various characters.
Oh,
Or,
I can get behind that.
Any other hilariously bad ideas?
Well, my idea was to have every guest we've ever had on and do like a marathon 8-hour stream, like as long as Google will let you. So it's understandably quashed pretty early.
Or we invite a few of the older guests on and do a roast of Daddy Warpig and us.
I tried to get a couple of guests to come on the show. Unfortunately, it was very last minute, and so neither of them could come on. They're both very, very busy, and I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want I don't want it to seem like I'm complaining or pointing them out. I very much appreciate them even responding to me at this late date, and I completely understand why they couldn't come on. So, but I did try. It was too late, but I did try. So I'm trying to catch up on the chat now. I'm reading through the chat. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yeah, when is Razor Fist coming back is the number one question.
We have no idea. There is nothing currently scheduled. In fact, all of our, at one point we had a huge list of guests coming on. We had like 6 or 7 of them, and they've all either come on or not been able to come on for one reason or another. So we don't have any plans right now. In the future, we don't have any near future plans for specific guests, big names or otherwise. If that changes, we'll let you know. Are there any other questions?
Someone's asking about our podcast schedule. Apparently, the latest game night episode isn't on the podcast networks yet.
Yes, it hasn't been uploaded to SoundCloud so people can download it yet. That is true. And that is, I guess technically it's my fault, but
well, this is good news. I didn't know anybody was waiting for it to come on, so.
I've had extenuating circumstances the last 2 or 3 days that has kept me from doing things immediately.
We're getting support for the radio play idea. We're going to have Razor Fist direct it, and you're going to get to be the Shadow, DW.
I thought Razor Fist was going to be the Shadow.
That's what they say. I mean, they say he has a great shadow laugh.
He does.
I think Daddy Warpig would be the villain, for sure. After all, he gets caught monologuing on this show all the time.
Zing. No, seriously. You should go. Everybody should go listen to the Shadow Radio play that Razor Fist and a bunch of his YouTube friends did for Halloween. They actually dug up an old script for a lost episode and produced it. It's phenomenal.
I actually saw another movie this week. It was awful. It was terrible. It was like legendarily mediocre. Like mediocre in that way that it's not so bad that you can laugh at it because it's so bad it's funny or entertaining. It was just mediocre. It was just a poor concept carried out poorly with bad special effects that made no sense. It was a zombie apocalypse movie, and the very first thing you think of after watching the movie for about 5 or 10 minutes, the very first thing I thought of is, all you people deserve to die, and most of you are. Most of you are going to. The characters were idiots. All of them were idiots. They all did stupid things, and in point of fact, as is the tradition in zombie movies, most of them died. And there were, I don't know, if people, the movie is called Viral. I saw it on Netflix. And I want to spoil 2 parts of this for you because they're so terrible that I just have to get them out on the air. So if you have seen, if you want to see Viral but don't want it spoiled, then, fast forward just a little bit. There's a zombie apocalypse going on, and these 2 sisters are incredibly close, and they are good friends, and they love each other a lot. And the boyfriend of one of the sisters comes to the house and finds out that his girlfriend has been locked in the bathroom with big wooden boards nailed over the doorway in the zombie apocalypse. So
yeah, this only means one thing.
His reaction is to stick his arm through a gap in the boards.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. He doesn't deserve what he's going to get.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. All of these characters deserve the bad stuff that happened to them. And so he gets killed. She grabs his arm, almost tears it off, eats him. He gets killed. Shocking of all shocks. Now, I don't know. I've never actually been in a zombie apocalypse. I can't say how I personally would really literally react to a dead person or a highly infected person who you can catch this disease just by blood or saliva or something. And you know what's going around. You have literally seen people being eaten. I don't know how I would react to that in the real world, but I would like to think if I saw one woman board up a room in which her sister that she cares more about than just about anybody else in the world, that I would have the presence of mind to maybe consider that this woman that was behind the boards might possibly be dangerous. I might have the presence of mind to go, well, I want to find out what's going on. I'm going to leave her there for right now, express my regrets, and then go talk to the other sister and maybe just see that there might be a reasonable explanation for her being locked in a room behind a ton of boards. Now, is it possible? Would that thought cross your mind? Is that reasonable?
It crossed mine because I can't count how many better zombie movies that were made in someone's backyard on a handy cam I've seen than that movie sounds.
But I mean, wouldn't that thought be a reasonable thought to cross your mind as a person, is to think, well, maybe I should go talk to the other sister and find out what's going on before sticking your arm in this room? I don't know. That just seemed like a really reasonable response to me. Another point in the movie is these zombies have nesting behaviors. They're kind of like a mix of the clickers from The Last of Us and the vampires from Will Smith's I Am Legend. Like literally. They make little clicking sounds to locate people, and then they all get together in the same room and stand around breathing, and the girl shines her light and they don't notice it. It isn't until they make sound that the zombies notice them. Only there's worms. There's like these 2-foot long worms that come out of their ears. It's just undescribably awful. But they show a point of view shot from a military drone flying over the city using infrared, or maybe it's a helicopter or a jet or whatever, using infrared to locate clusters of people that are typical of those who are in nests. So they can target them and blow them up. Now, I myself would tend to think that you would use a drone or something like that, or maybe an Apache gunship or whatever, But instead, what they have the military doing is flying B-2 bombers so low and slow over the city that they can be seen from rooftops, flying B-2 bombers and carpet bombing the city. So this is the military's response to seeing 2 houses in an entire neighborhood that have nests of vampires, is to launch an arc light strike on the city. And then, dumbest moment I have seen in forever. The 2 main characters who have survived run out of the house where a zombie nest was located. And as they go out of the house, they jump towards a pool. And the house explodes, and a B-2 bomber flies overhead, flies through the shot as they're jumping into the pool. And they jump into the pool and are completely safe from ammunition, the bombs.
Wow.
So, viral, as far as being a movie, that's its name, viral. By the way, nothing in the movie is a virus. Nothing. There are no viruses in the movie. It's a parasite.
Yeah, but it's viral. It's a viral parasite.
There's no such thing as a... So viral doesn't have any viruses. It has parasites. And I'm betting the movie itself didn't go viral because nobody liked it. You're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse that you know people are getting disease transmitted by blood. The military has given you food so you can hole up in your house and have a week's supply of food plus a lantern that you can spin and it'll get charged and all that stuff. And what do? You go to a party in a house, an underground rave in a house that's just being built. Of course. That's of course what you're going to do. After seeing your best friend fall down and die and then get up and bite another student and kill them, of course you're going to go out of the house to this rave. It's inane. The characters behaved like idiots, and they all of them who died deserved to die, and some who survived also deserved to die. So, yeah, terrible.
But that's the difference between like a proper horror movie and a stupid slasher, because when you watch those slasher movies with the dumb kids, you're like, haha, they deserve getting killed by the axe murderer. But that's not effective horror. It's just kind of silly entertainment.
See, and that's the thing is, I can at least say Pirates of the Caribbean, comparing it to viral. I think you need to do this from time to time. Watch a really bad movie so you can appreciate what's good about movies that are flawed. Pirates of the Caribbean had great performances from Jeffrey Rush, from Johnny Depp. And Jeffrey Rush has a really big part. Captain Barbossa has a really big part in this movie. If Blackbeard had had as big a part in number 4, it would have been a much better movie. And then, so it has great performances, or at least credible performances from the backup players. It has absolutely stunning and impeccable special effects instead of cheap and fake-looking special effects. It did so much right that when you compare it to a movie like Viral, that the movie like Viral just gets wrong. And I'm not even saying they did it on purpose. This isn't a cheesy horror movie like Birdemic, where they're purposely making a bad movie, or Sharknado, which I talked about a few weeks ago, where they're purposely making a bad movie. They weren't purposely making a bad movie. They were trying to make the best zombie movie they could, and they just didn't have the chops in screenwriting, in acting, in special effects, whatever. They just didn't have the chops to pull off a competent movie. So it's sad, but there is a difference between a movie like Pirates of the Caribbean, which does not rise to the level of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but is still aeons better than something like Viral. So, the thing is, we did our like 2-year anniversary a couple of months ago, and we did all the reminiscing then that we were really going to do. I'm not really big on reminiscing, but
I was looking forward.
Looking forward to bad movies, bad games.
I'd like to go see a movie that was so incredible I could come to the show and just gush about it and say how awesome it was. I'd love that. That'd be great. I'm aware that is rare, but at the same time, I'm just waiting for. I guess the next thing I can really look forward to is Dunkirk, by Christopher Nolan. There's a bunch of other movies coming out that might be good, might be bad. Wonder Woman is coming out, I think, next week. There's a large number of other movies coming out, but I'm not really excited for any of them, especially the DC movies. So, yeah. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I'm glad that we made it 200 episodes. Here's to another more, guys. I love talking with you guys every week or so, and it's good. And thanks to everybody for listening.
Here. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks to Data Warpig and Dornall for inviting me on and then letting me stay. Now that this is an honor and a privilege, it was a lot of fun. Here's to 100 more.
Well, time to do my normal spiel. Whether you've listened to the show or not, we're available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and the Google Play Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab, and we're of course available on YouTube.com/Geek Gab. This is our 100th episode. We appreciate everyone who has joined us along the way, who's been listening along the way. All 100 episodes are available on YouTube for download, and they will get, let me be perfectly honest, folks, they get progressively worse the further back in time you go. But that's only because we're getting better every single week. And so, but we've had some great shows. We've had some landmark shows. We've had some great guests. Our 9th episode number 9, we had Larry Correa come on the show, which was awesome. We had Adam Baldwin, John C. Wright, Adam Baldwin, the Hollywood actor John C. Wright, Razor Fist. We've had a huge number of guests, and we're looking forward to having more people on the show, more guests on the show, doing more great and interesting reviews. And of course, Geek Gab now is not just one podcast. It's now a podcast network. We have On the Books and Game Night, both available, and both of them have their own separate playlist under the channel here on YouTube, so you can listen to them, and both of them get syndicated, of course, through the podcast feed. Although the most recent episode of Game Night has not yet been sent out. I will get to that this afternoon. You can, if you want to get email announcements of when shows are scheduled or when we're going to go live, so that you can show up and hang out in the chat and talk. There's a huge discussion in the chat right now. During the show, they've been talking about the difficulty of micromanaging command and control with modern-day communications, as far as the presidency micromanaging military deployments and special forces missions, and even sometimes exactly what happens on those missions. I kid you not, that conversation was going on in the chat during the show. They cover a whole bunch of interesting ideas and concepts in the chat. And if you come in and listen to us live, you get to participate and also ask questions that we may or may not have answers for, and we may or may not actually tell them to you. So if you want the announcements, you can participate in the chat, and it's available for all 3 of the shows. You need to double secret subscribe, because that's the way YouTube does it. Click the subscribe button, and then there's going to be a little bell. Click on the bell again. That's your double secret subscribe. That will allow you to receive email announcements about our channel, so you can know when they're going live. You can come on and participate in the chat, ask us questions. We appreciate, of course, all of our listeners who have been listening to the show for however long you've been listening, whether this is your first episode or your 50th or even your 100th. We appreciate you for listening. And again, we really, really hope to continue doing this for as long as it remains something cool, as long as it remains something that is interesting to you, our audience. we're signing off for today. We are leaving. We are cruelly walking away from our microphones. There will be no more show today. But don't fret, folks, because I promise we will be back.